Hello and welcome back to Modern Jubilees. In this video, I want to talk about the difference between Allah and God. For basically my entire life, I considered them, of course, the same thing because they both represent the one God. There's one God who is merciful and righteous, and there's only one God. So it was very clear to me, having grown up with knowledge of the one God, that if there's another people who happen to be our cousins and they believe that they follow the one God, then it's probably the same God and they just have another name for this same God. I really believed that for a very, very long time. Yesterday, I watched two documentaries about October 7th. And the first one was about the killing roads, and the next one was #Nova. And in these videos, something changed. Something changed for me from watching these videos. And I came to realize a few things. I think I've been a little bit too generous. And it's interesting because when I was young and I came across Muslims, I would say things like, Allahu Akbar, Adonai Echad. God is the greatest, or Allah is the greatest. My Lord is one. And I thought that this would be very not controversial at all. And yet I was time after time told, no, they're not the same by the Muslims. And it was weird for me that I should be told that because I don't understand. Why wouldn't I be following the same God as you? I come from Abraham. I come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the people of the book, of the holy book, people of the book as they're known in the Quran. And it just didn't make any sense. Let's just look at the Hebrew for a second. In the Bible, in the Torah, which is written in Hebrew, God has many names. There are different names for the same God, just as I have many names. Different people call me different things. And so we have things like El, Elohim, Adonai, Tsevaot, many, many names for God. And also in Arabic, there are many names for God. But let's look at the main one. And the main one is Allah. And it's often when people say Allahu Akbar, they're saying God is the greatest. And interestingly, in the Hebrew, Al means on or above. So Allah would be above her, above God, above everything. So it's the greatest. Already in the Hebrew of the word Allah is like above. I'm trumping, sort of the trumping God. Whereas in Hebrew, El, the closest to Allah, El or Elohim. Elohim is the name of God that represents the plurality of this world and it's being united by the one God. So it's God through nature. A little bit esoteric perhaps, but that's the reality. And El is just God. So that's how you have all these Hebrew names that begin or end with God and that are about God. Eliezer, El Kayam, many, many names. But El also means two. El means two, while Al means on, and it's spelled differently. El means two, T-O, meaning a bridge, meaning a destination, meaning going forward, meaning we're going forward together. We're trying to reach something greater than ourselves. So it's different than Allah, which would be the trumping God. El is the transformative God. God is transformative, meant to transform our hearts and our lives. Anyhow, first of all, many Muslims are fine, but so many are also not. And these videos really changed something in me. They really, really changed something in me because there was a very, very strong contrast between the Hamas and so many other terror groups and civilians who came through that day and repeatedly said the name of God, and the Israelis and the people who were being attacked. Not all of them were Israelis, not all of them were Jews, but the people who were being attacked, and how they, especially here, the Israelis and Jews, talk to God and pray to God. And the contrast was so stark that I understood that I have been wrong in my thinking. I have been wrong, plainly put, because it's not possible that the same people who are saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, while trying to behead someone with an axe, or while shooting indiscriminately at young civilians running through a field to try to get away from this mass murder, genocidal intent to just wipe everybody out, a pogrom, a massacre. But there's a huge difference between these people calling God's name so many times and sounding as if they're in mosque, in mosque, the prayer, that's what people are saying, Allahu Akbar, and they're bowing and they're going down on their knees and they're saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And that's what they're saying in these videos. And it's no coincidence, because in your place of prayer is where a lot of the ideology is coming from. And so if in your mosque or in your church, they're teaching you that, Jews are so terrible, then that's going to be part of your religious beliefs. And focusing here on Islam, that's clearly what they've been getting in not only their mosques, but their schools and their homes from the moment they were born or prior, to the point that they can say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, while committing terrible, terrible acts that go against every law of humanity, every law of decency. I mean, the most basic things, and then doing all these terrible things. I mean, you see pictures, you see in the videos, women who had just been raped and killed. You can see what was done, and the reports have come out, and it's very clear that the bodies were burned beyond recognition, were, cut up into pieces, and that many girls were mass raped and passed around. And it's really, really crazy to see. But here we're focusing on, and it's crazy that it happened, and it's crazy that people can commit these things and say God's name. So that's how I'm understanding it's not God's name. It's not God's name in my tradition, and I shouldn't be so tolerant as to say that it's God's name in their tradition. Why? Because my tradition, the nation of Israel, was formed thousands of years before Islam began conquering vast swaths of the world and taking over. And for them to say, oh, we come from Abraham, but not respect the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who were specifically chosen by God, the entire story of the Bible, beyond the scope of this video, means that there's something inherently flawed in that religion. I appreciate the spread of monotheism, because there is more monotheism than there was, but there is an inherent flaw in the religion, and there's an inherent flaw in the mindset and in many of these mosques, in which they can call on God's name as if they're calling to the true God, the God of Israel, the God who loves Israel, the God who chose Israel and formed Israel and saved Israel and gave Israel the Torah, the eternal Torah, which says within itself that it is for all time and forever, and that this pact and that the covenant between the nation of Israel and God is forever. And so first I want to honor here some of the clips in which we see Jews and Israelis saying God's name in these videos. And then I want to look at a few of the instances and things that are said by the terrorists, by the Muslims, that talk about God and that are so strange. And I won't show anything graphic, and I'm only going to show a few examples. First, let's look at this woman. This young woman was driving, and there were all the rockets. She stopped at a bomb shelter. She hid behind this little wall here. She was by herself. She's not sure if anyone came in or if they were a little bit farther away, is what she thinks in the end. Either way, we all know that if she would have been found alone by these roaming gangs of monsters, we know exactly what would have been done to her, because we saw it many times and we know about it occurring many times. And so she says here that she remembers reciting the Shema Israel prayer to God. Shema Israel we see first in the Bible. Shema Israel, hear, O Israel. The Lord is our God, the Lord is one. The Lord is our God, the Lord is one. There's one Lord. And so if you align yourself with the God of Israel, then you know the one true God. But if you're going to say, oh, we come from Abraham, but we're against the children of Israel, then it's an oxymoron and it makes no sense. So here she's saying she remembers reciting the Shema Israel. Here's another person reciting the Shema Israel. Also, these are from videos from real time from the day of October 7th. He says, just take care of my mother. That's his prayer. That's a real prayer. You pray to God and you say, and you ask people, please help take care of my mother. A true prayer. Here's another person, Iran, as he's going into the Nova Festival, he's looking for survivors, and all he finds are more and more and more bodies. 368 people were massacred at just the Nova Festival alone. Some 1,200 people on that day alone, civilians, not including the terrorists who were killed on that day. A small percentage of the people, of the Jews and Israelis killed, were in the military bases, but the large majority were civilians. Anyway, so he says here, woe, oy va'avoy. He is pained. Another person, Moti, says, let there be good news. Here he's experiencing this terrible, terrible thing, and he gives a little prayer. Sheyu besorot tovot, there should be good news. Another girl who is hiding under a tree. Shema Israel, hero Israel. Another person, hero Israel, brother. Let it be over already, please God. He's praying to God. Hero Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Another few people, these are 3 different streams of people hiding under trees after they ran far from the Nova. Everything is written from above, she says. Kol katuv milamala, which is related to an Arabic phrase, maktub. Everything is written. There's so much good that could be connecting between the children of Isaac and the children of Ishmael, the spiritual children of Ishmael at least, and yet we saw all this evil. Another woman, God will protect us. Elohim yishmor otanu. Okay, and now I'm going to get to a few examples in which the name Allah is used on this day. So someone telling the story, I heard Allahu Akbar followed by explosions and gunfire. And we see many videos of them saying Allahu Akbar and doing all sorts of absolutely terrible things that go against every natural law, every law of God, every law of humanity, every single one. And now here we get to these 2 very, very strange quotes here that are what we're going to end with, because this is what made me want to reconsider my stance on the name Allah. Well, first one, may Allah curse the honor of your children. Who would say that? Who would ever say, may God curse the honor of your children? It's just a weird thing. You don't say that. Even if you have an enemy that is coming to kill you and you're like about to defend yourself, like you just defend yourself. You're not going to now curse them and their children and the honor of their children. It's just such a weird thing to say. But here are the 2 quotes that I really want to focus on here. This is what made me want to change my mind and really think about things. Now the English doesn't make any sense, so I'm going to translate from the Hebrew. She'alafim yilchu kapara leman Islam. May thousands, may is a prayer. May thousands be killed, die. May thousands die as an atonement for the sake of Islam. And the next one, may tens of thousands die as an atonement for Islam. Now, what this translates to in a normal mind is you're saying that Islam needs to be atoned for. Islam has had many, many, many sins, and Islam needs to be atoned for. And so this prayer here is saying, may thousands, may tens of thousands die. This is their prayer as they're going into Israel and invading on October 7th in a brutal, brutal massacre. They prayed, and now tens of thousands have died in Gaza, including the terrorists, yes, but including also civilians I need to qualify with, civilians who were not involved on October 7th, as many civilians were. Thousands crossed over and looted homes and took hostage dead bodies that they found. Crazy things. As Trump said, you don't take dead bodies unless you are sick and twisted, and these people are sick and twisted. So they're saying, may tens of thousands of people die. May, it's a prayer. May tens of thousands die as an atonement for Islam. Again, the only way I can understand this is they're saying Islam has sinned tremendously, and so may tens of thousands of our people die as an atonement for Islam. The guess is that they're saying may tens of thousands of Israelis die as an atonement for the sake of Islam. Is that even better? They're saying that Islam needs to be atoned for. They understand there's something inherently wrong with their tradition and religion and practices, and so they're asking for an atonement. They're saying, we will go slaughter tens of thousands of people so that you, God, will forgive us for our sins. But what they're really saying, and what really ended up happening, is that tens of thousands of their own people are dying, and they're praying that it's an atonement for Islam. They have no problem with people dying. Death is glorified. This relates to Douglas Murray's book. I haven't read it, but the title is on democracies and death cults, and it's very much a death cult. If you listen to Mossab Hassan Youssef talk about how he was raised and what it was all about, it's very much a death cult there. And you see pictures of children dressed up and the videos that they make and the skits that they make in school and they're glorifying death. They're glorifying with children stabbings and suicide bombings. It's a death cult, he says correctly. Now, if I'm going to be a little bit more generous here, and I said, let's say they're saying, may tens of thousands be killed as an atonement for the sake of Islam. Now, atonements are part of the ancient Israelite history and part of many ancient cultures that atonements were given, meaning sacrifices were given of animals. Animal sacrifices were given. Child sacrifices, human sacrifices were more widespread in certain cultures, like the Canaanite cultures. There was definitely virgin sacrifice, child sacrifice, girl sacrifices. These kinds of things definitely happened in the South America and in the Middle East. The God of Israel obviously forbade it. That's why the God of Israel mandated so many animal sacrifices in the temple. The idea was, give these animal sacrifices and remember that giving any human sacrifice is an abomination to God. It's completely against what God wants. Don't ever do it. Don't ever copy the nations around you. Don't intermarry with them lest you come to copy what they do in this thing. So the idea that saying may thousands die or may tens of thousands die, and they're talking about human beings as an atonement for the sake of Islam. Let's say they're just saying an atonement for the sake of Islam, just like, people pray on the Day of Atonement, and the Israelites used to give atonement sacrifices at the temple. It's a natural part of life to give God sacrifices. We want to give God sacrifices. We want to raise an altar and burn incense, a pleasing scent, and give to God. We want to be able to give back to God. But this idea of may thousands die, may tens of thousands die as a sacrifice for the sake of Islam is not monotheism. It's not the God of Israel, because anyone who knows anything about the one true God knows that God long, long ago forbade and absolutely despises the idea of murdering human beings as a sacrifice to God. It is rejected. It is like so primitive. And that's again why this whole thing just stood out to me so strongly. The idea of sacrificing human beings as an atonement for anything to the one true God is again an oxymoron. It's not possible. It's insane. And it was the final straw for me to understand that Allah is not the God of Israel. And that's what made me think, really think. This is the most twisted thing I've really seen. I love language. I love to analyze translations, and it just spins the mind to think that someone would say this as a prayer to Allah. This is the prayer to Allah. So what is this cult? Are they praying to the one God, the God of Israel, the God who chose the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob forever to give them this land? I mean, it's the whole story of the Bible. How can you say that you follow the one God if you don't know the Bible, if you don't respect the Bible, and if you don't respect God's nation, the nation of Israel, that God loves very much? And God has blessed tremendously, tremendously. Despite persecution, despite hardships, we're still grateful. We're grateful to have the Torah. The Torah is our heart and soul. Nothing will ever take that from us. So I will end with that. And if you have any insights into any of this, I'd love to hear it. It's really an entire lifetime of separating between the bad guys, the bad Islamists, and the good Muslims, which there are good Muslims. For some people, Islam really is a peaceful religion. But for so many, it's not. And the reality is that even among the peaceful Muslims, according to their religion, if someone is not Muslim, they should be, in the best case, subjugated with dhimmi status, and in the worst case, killed as kafirs. So there's a lot that connects Arabic and Hebrew. There's a lot that connects Islam and Judaism. Of course, Judaism is much more ancient and Hebrew is much more ancient. But there's a lot that connect them. However, if one that is a break-off tries to, kill the host, then it's inherently flawed. This is where we see the Nostra Aetate of the Catholics. At the beginning, they were sort of inherently trying to kill their own host, but eventually they realized that they are a branch from this great olive tree called the nation of Israel and the Jewish people. So I pray that the Muslims will have a similar moment in time where they are able to understand that you can't follow the one God if you're not going to recognize the people that the one God created and set apart, and you're going to do these kinds of things and say Allahu Akbar all the time and then do these things, it's really, really mind-blowing. So I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts, and may we see better times. May we see better times than these difficult times that we're in right now, and may we see times of peace and reconciliation between peoples of all faith. All right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This is Modern Jubilees, and we will see you next time.